everybody. Jeff Cowan here from Jeff Cowan's Pro Talk, and I'm back with a new edition of my podcast entitled Right Service. Write your own paycheck, the path to making over $100,000 a year when writing service in the automotive industry in the United States of America, Canada, and Australia. And at this very recording, over 20% of you are doing just that. You're making over six figures, 100 grand. But that means that 78, 79% of you are not. So what are we going to do about that? Well, here's what I recommend you do. Keep doing what you're doing right now. Watch my podcast. Go to my website. Check out my articles and the other videos on there, and you'll find the tools, the techniques, the word tracks, and the processes you need to maximize the opportunity that you face every day that will help you get into that $100,000 a year club. And it's a fun club to be on. So welcome to today's podcast. Now, here's today's message. Put your clothes back on. That's right, I said it. America, it's time to put your clothes back on. Now, what in the heck am I talking about? Well, here's what I'm talking about. You know, when the pandemic and the virus started, a lot of bad things happened, but there were some silver linings to some of these clouds out there if you want to look around, and one was the freedom to work from home. And a lot of us got to do that, work from home. And I tell you, it was a real godsend, because instead of jumping out of bed at the crack of dawn, you could stay in bed until 8, 9 o'clock if you wanted to, if you needed to, right? And on top of that, when you're working at home, you're kind of the master of your own schedule. You could spend more time with your family, more time with your kids, more time with your pets. You could spruce things up around the house, work in the yard. I mean, there was really a lot of silver lining to it, you know? But one of the things that happened from this that was a silver lining initially is that we quickly realized that we didn't have to put our uniform on every day. Now, I don't care where you work and what it is that you do, but however you dress when you go into work, that's your uniform. I mean, lawyers have uniforms, doctors have uniforms, service advisors certainly have uniforms. I mean, when you work in a restaurant, you typically have a uniform. Hairstylists have uniforms. Whatever you wear to work, that's your uniform. But here's what happened to the uniform. When people started realizing that they were working from home, they realized that they didn't have to follow such stringent rules. Now, it was pretty amazing to me how this worked, because when this all first started, people that never were used to working from home, they would get up like they always did. They would shower, they would groom themselves, and they'd put on their uniform, and they'd sit in front of their computers, and they'd have these Zoom meetings, and it was great. But in a very short amount of time, within 10 days, that all went away because it hit them. Nobody cared. And even people encouraged them to relax their standards because we don't know what's going on. And it was obvious everybody was afraid and everybody was scared because nobody knew it was going to happen. So over a 10-day period, very quickly, people started not putting on their uniforms. And they quickly stopped showering, and they stopped grooming. And it went from sometimes suits and ties to sweats and t-shirts and ruffled hair and stubble on the face. All right? But now it's time, as things start to open back up and have opened back up, it's time to put your clothes back on. Because one of the things that people are trying to hold on to is they're trying to convince the world that we don't need these uniforms anymore. We're a casual society and we can dress however we like. But you know what? That's not going to hold true. I mean, it's not going to hold true. And here's what I mean by that. You know, I work in an office building here with a lot of professionals. I mean, there's lawyers on the floor, there's doctors in the building, there's realtors in the building. And it was amazing to me as the pandemic and the virus hit, how quickly even they, not being able to go to court, maybe not seeing as many patients, they started to relax their dress code. Now, business owners and managers, I think it was a good idea while this was going on and most people were working from home that you relax the dress standards, but now that things are opening back up, you need to put the uniforms back on. I mean, think about it. If you're going to see your lawyer and you've got a case you need them to fight, you don't want them to show up in court in sweats and t-shirts. When you go to see your doctor, you don't want to go see some guy or gal that's got shorts on and a t-shirt. You want to see them dressed the way they're supposed to be. When you go to a 5-star restaurant, you want to see them dressed the way you're used to them being dressed, and no matter what it is. I don't know why. And even service advisors. I mean, you got away with a lot. You maybe in the past had to wear a polo shirt or a button-down shirt with some nice dress slacks and dress shoes, or shoes that look nice anyway, right? And during the pandemic, you got to start wearing hats. You didn't have to comb your hair. You could wear a t-shirt. You could wear jeans. You could wear tennis shoes, and that was fine. But it's time to put your uniform back on. It's time to put your clothes back on. Now, why am I so big about this? Because I don't want to be a killjoy. Well, it's real simple. Your uniform instills confidence in your customers. That's what I was talking about a second ago. I mean, it instills confidence. It shows people that you stand out. It shows that you're dedicated and you're committed to being the best that you can be, and part of being the best you can be is pay attention to your appearance. Now, I've always been an advocate, especially in the service departments, of uniforms, you know. But I've also always encouraged people that own those businesses and manage those shops to at least annually take a look at your uniforms and see if they still match the situation. What do I mean? I remember a long time ago, probably 20, 25 years ago, I had several clients in Phoenix, Arizona, and I was traveling out there year round. Well, when you get there in the middle of July and it's 115 outside, that's hot. And most of these shops and most of these drives in Phoenix, Arizona, back then, they weren't enclosed, they were outside. Yet a lot of these places were stuck in the 40s, 50s, and 60s, and even the 70s, and still requiring service advisors to wear button-down collars with ties tied up tight and sports coats on, and it's 115 outside. You know, I'll take credit for largely making the change over there in Phoenix, Arizona, and because I started telling the dealers, who are you trying to kid? Your customers are laughing at your advisors the way they come in. They go, what are you doing with a coat and tie on? It's 100 degrees outside. And so I was the one that started the movement to open collars were fine, and maybe not dress slacks, but maybe more like a chino. I was the one that got them to agree to put, you know, tennis shoes on as long as they were clean and they were white and they were bright and they matched and all that stuff. I mean, I advocated that because it was the change that needed to happen. And so every year I've found it's a good idea to take a look at your uniforms. Do you need polo shirts? Is that better than a sport coat? Or do you need sports coats because maybe the polo shirt's outworn its welcome? And it may be seasonal. I mean, here in California, it's not uncommon at all to go to service drive and see people running around with Hawaiian-style shirts on and nice short pants on and nice white, bright tennis shoes. But 2 or 3 months from now, when we get into the end of October, November, and things cool down, to see these same places go to more dressier slack, and a button-down white shirt of some kind, you know. So I've always been an advocate of updating. If you want to update or you want to change your uniform, right now is the time to do it, because as people come back to work and come back into these uniforms, define what that uniform's going to be. And I think it's important you do this sooner versus later if you've not already done it, because your competition will start to use it as a tool against you. I mean, when people come in, you instill confidence by your look and by your appearance. Appearance matters, and it always has. And if I've got a choice where I can go over here and they're dressed professional and they look nice and they look sharp, it makes me believe that they are sharp and they know what they're doing, versus if I go to someplace else and they're not dressed that way. You know, I mean, it's time to put your clothes back on. It's time to put your uniforms back on. And I like to quote Marilyn Monroe when it comes to uniforms, because she always said, you know, I don't mind telling jokes, and I don't mind making jokes, but I don't like being the butt of jokes. So, you know, again, you want to be taken seriously, appearance matters. Your customers want to work with people, your customers don't want to work with people who aren't dressed for the part they play. Appearance matters, repeating myself, it's always matter, and it sets an expectation. It's something we can control, and in this uncertain economy, in this uncertain world that we live in right now, that should bring some real comfort to you. But it's not the kind of comfort that comes from wearing sweats, but the kind that comes from instilling confidence in your business and your product, so that your valued customers will be willing to take the leap of faith with you. It's the leap of faith that's going to drive the economic recovery and that will determine our futures. And I think, and I definitely think it's worth getting dressed for. Don't you? Hey, this is Jeff Cowan from Jeff Cowan's Pro Talk. You want to be the best you can be? You don't feel like you're hitting all the numbers that you should be and getting all the results you should be? Then you dial that number right there, 1-800-248-2931, and anybody picks up that phone can tell you how we can come and show you very quickly how to maximize the opportunity you have. You know what? I'll be back next week with another message. I want you to come back and listen to it. In the meantime, you go make this a great week, because between now and next week, that's exactly what I'm going to do. Thank you for watching. God bless you, and I'll talk to you soon.